Hi guys, it's Isa. Today we're gonna see some amazing fantasy book recommendations that have a fascinating magic system. These books are super unique. Sometimes you are in that vibe of reading something that is kind of like very, very fantasy, and that has this vibe to it that you can expand your mind, just dream and see how different magic systems work. And so we will start with one that seemed super boring to me when I was listening in it. But when I read it and when I understood it and when I saw it in action, it was fascinating. And that's the magic that happens in the Founders trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett. The first book, it's Foundryside, which I don't have, and the second one is Shortfall. And the magic in here consists in us being able to inscribe objects, and then those objects kind of like are persuaded to behave in a certain way. So this means that I can inscribe a book, for example, to not open never. And this is a story that I not just love because of the magic, but overall this is a 5-star series for me. It's fantastic. It's really a blend between a character and a plot-driven story. It leans a little bit more towards the plot-driven. It's a heist at its core. The different characters are very, very compelling. Although it's adult fantasy, it leans a little bit towards young adult. And overall, the story will kick off with our main girl that has a special ability, which means that she is also able to sense what objects are feeling, which makes her the ultimate thief, and she is tasked with thieving something really important that, surprise surprise, will change the events completely from this city. Then we have Winds of Strife, a self-pub book by E.J. Goodman, and in here the magic, it's done through emotions. And so there's people that can harness their emotions, and those emotions, are translated into something physical. So you can be like real chilled, real calm, and you will have kind of like this bubble around you, and no one is going to be able to hurt you. Or you can really be enraged, be really kind of like hating the world, and then you will have hatred, and as a result you will make the world burn, quite literally. So that's kind of like the vibe, which I thought was really, really, really interesting. We only have the first book in a series, but the story, it's adult fantasy. It's kind of like a good blend, I'd say, again, in this case, between plot and character driven. The thing is that the characters are all very grey and are all very different. For warning, I do know the author, so I might be biased, but I honestly believe his work is amazing. But the premise of this story is that we have this land where the nights are getting longer and longer and longer, and it seems that the king decided that it was because of the woman and the witches, and therefore we need to hunt them down. We will follow different points of view within the story, and one of them, it's one of these persons that are within this legion of people hunting. And so he is a very great, he is kind of like hunting, but he's also kind of helping witches, but because he wants to also break down the whole world. And then we move to a younger story with Legendborn. In this case, I think it's a combination of magics. We have kind of like a more traditional soft magic system, kind of like what Merlin, the biggest wizard, it's able to do, right? Like you can throw stuff, and that stuff can hunt and kill demons. But we will also see a little bit of root magic, which I believed it was really, really interesting, and it was fairly new to me. This story, it leans more towards the plot-driven side. It has a slow beginning. We will have our main character, Bree, that is kind of like coping with the death of her mom, and she starts college. First nights outside, she tries to do her stuff, and she sees a bunch of demons kind of like trying to kill people. Everyone is kind of like blipped, memory forgotten, and she kind of like still remembers stuff. And so she starts to investigate, and she discovers pretty early on that there's this secret society called Legendborn, where the science and the descendants of the Arthurian society live, and that they are hosting a set of tournaments to enter in this society. And so she will get there, and it has a slow burn, it has a little bit of a love triangle, but it really goes beyond that for me. Alrighty, and then we will do a little bit of Brandon here because yes, like he has amazing magic systems, right? And so we will start with Mistborn, which for me it's kind of like the best one, I believe. I don't have the English version, so let's acknowledge real quick how ugly the Spanish version is, and then let's remove it and add kind of like a beautiful image here. And in Mistborn, the magic happens through the ingestion of different metals. And so there are different metals. Each of these metals has a special power, and you can be able to modify and influence people's emotions. So you were able to fly, or you were able to predict a little bit the future. You know, like there's all these kind of very, very, very phenomenal things that you can do with this magic, and all of these is kind of like embedded in this a very shady world where kind of like the ashes are all around. The story, the first one at least, it's a heist at its core. I'd say it talks about what if the bad guy won, and that bad guy has been ruling for hundreds of years. And that's where the story kicks off, because we have these people that has been really enslaved by this evil man that has been ruling. And so our main characters will start to do a heist to take something from this dude. But of course, you know, like the stakes will get higher, and then we go to the story of Brandon Sanderson, which is Stormlight Archive, right? Again, let's acknowledge real quick how this is not as fun or beautiful as the English version, and then let's give it away. I will try to not spoil much, because this is the type of story in which you learn about the magic as story progresses, so you might need to believe me when I tell you that the magic is amazing. But we have these kind of like different creatures that live in this world and that they are magical, right? These creatures are also present in different swords, and so whoever holds these swords is able to do amazing stuff. And over time, these creatures will have kind of like a little bit more of a relevance, right? And we will see how our main characters are able to take a little bit of magic from these creatures, and you know, the story goes from there. Stormlight, it's at its core a story of war between different species, but it's so fantastic. It is amazing. Please read it. Right, now going into something that it's quite similar, I believe, to Brandon Sanderson, we have the Black Prism. And in here, the magic is based on colors. And so very similar to what happens in Mistborn. Usually, you know, like people has this affinity to one, maybe two colors, but we will have our main character, who is the Black Prism, who is able to hold all of those different colors, and so he is able to fight amazingly, he's able to fly, he's able to do a lot of different stuff, and it's really awesome. It's actually pretty cool. I thought that it was really interesting how the magic was described and how to get there. And this story, it's I'd say more plot driven than character driven, but the characters are super interesting, and there's a lot to them, right? When you're starting the book, you believe that you have a good measure of different characters,
but no, you don't. You don't.
And this book tells the story of this Black Prism, who is supposed to just rule for some years, and it seems that after that they are so kind of like powerful that usually they die. But our protagonist has been living for way more than what's expected, and he kind of like knows that he will die soon, and so he's kind of like moving different threads, he have different plans, and then one day he discovers that he has a son. And you know, the story gets political real fast. There's war coming on. Coolio. Then we move to another story that has me completely obsessed, and that is The Drowning Empire. The first book, The Bone Shard Daughter. The second one, The Bone Shard Emperor. And in here, the magic system is a little bit creepy. Like, hear me out, don't go away. We will have this magic based on constructs. So it seems that this royal family in this Asian-inspired story, it's able to create different monsters based on flesh of different animals, but overall, because they are able to inscribe instructions in different bones that are later on put in these animals and these constructs, and then these constructs emerge and they are able to do a lot of different stuff. But then we will also see kind of like a little bit of different magic coming on, a little bit more on elemental magic. Maybe it's maybe more as the story progresses. I know it seems disgusting, but it's done not elegantly, because I don't know how can that be done, but really interestingly. And we will have in this story kind of like different points of view. One of the main ones is of this daughter of the emperor, and she has forgotten everything, and she is therefore not able really to do this magic, and so she's learning. There's a lot of this training trope. And then we will have other point of view, which is of this man that is kind of like in a quest to save and rescue his wife, and then along the way he kind of like gets involved in a lot of different stuff. He discovers and he meets this animal companion, and it's just so adorable. Then we move forward to a story that is a little bit darker, but honestly, well, darker. This was already a little bit dark, and it's this Savage song by B. Ishwab. This story has such interesting elements. Whenever an act of violence happens, this act of violence kind of like breeds monsters, and these monsters can be of three types, right? We can have this kind of like vampire-like creatures, we can have these kind of like shadowy creatures, if you will, and then you have these sunai, who are these creatures that are really rare and that are more like almost human, and they have the ability to steal souls through music, which I thought was like fantastic, right? One of our main characters is one of these monsters. The other main character is a human. This monster is able to condemn people that has done wrong by playing his violin, which I thought was so fantastic. And this story mainly, it's kind of like a fight between the good and evil. And then we conclude with a young adult story, which it's not as much magic, but the theme was so fascinating for me, which is time travel. And hear me out. It seems that these monsters are able to suck time from a person and use that time to time travel, but you need to steal as much time as you need to travel in the past. So for example, if you would like to travel to 100 years into the past, you will need to suck the life of a lot of different people to manage all of those years to take for you, you know? Very quick, it's very plot driven, and it's kind of like a story of something really bad happens at the beginning, and then our main character, who is a monster, but she didn't know that she was a monster. You know, she kind of like one day fast forwards into the future, and she's like, wait, what? And, you know, a set of events are triggered from there, and she will try to fix it. And so she will travel into the past with a lot of different people. She will be chased down. You know, this is not a romance story. I know this has been pitched a little bit like that, but it isn't. And I believed that it could have been such a sweet story, and it really wasn't, which for me, it was like, yeah, you're my type of book. And yeah, that was it for the day. I really hope you liked this video. Let me know other books that you believe have amazing magic systems, and I really hope to see you soon in other videos. I publish bookish content every Tuesday and Friday for you to enjoy. If you want to stay tuned, click that subscription button, and I hope to see you.